Have you ever wondered why a land so small could carry the weight of the entire world's faith? A place with no vast oceans, no endless rivers, no overwhelming wealth, yet it has shaped the hearts of billions. I didn't fully understand it either, until I started looking closer. This is not just a story about land. It's a story about belief, identity, and the invisible lines that divide people. In the heart of the Middle East lies a place where history doesn't sleep. Every stone, every street, every whisper in the wind carries echoes of the past. This is a land where three of the world's greatest religions were born, collided, and continue to coexist. A land where millions come seeking peace, yet peace itself remains uncertain. For thousands of years, people have fought for this place. Not just with weapons, but with faith, memory, and identity. And somehow, despite everything, life continues. Children still laugh in its streets. Prayers still rise into the sky every single day. And hope quietly refuses to disappear. So today, we're not just going to explore a destination. We're going to uncover a story that has shaped civilizations and still shapes the world today. A story of one land, claimed by many. A story of faith that unites and divides. And maybe, by the end of this journey, we'll understand not just the land, but the people and the truths they hold on to. So if you're not in a hurry, take a moment, stay with us, and step into one of the most complex, beautiful, and misunderstood places on Earth. If you look at a map, you might miss it entirely. A narrow stretch of land along the eastern edge of the Mediterranean. It's smaller than many US states, with no vast forests, no massive rivers, and very limited natural resources. And yet, this is one of the most contested places on Earth. For thousands of years, empires have risen and fallen, trying to control this land. From the ancient Babylonians and Romans to modern nations still locked in tension today. But here's the question that confuses so many people. Why here? Why this land, and not somewhere richer, larger, or more powerful? The answer isn't found in oil, or gold, or geography alone. It lies in something far more powerful: belief. For billions of people around the world, this land is not just territory. It is sacred. It is where prophets walked, where prayers were first spoken, where heaven and earth were believed to meet. Imagine a place where three different faiths all say, "This matters more than anything." And not just symbolically, but deeply, emotionally, personally. For a Jewish family, it may represent a promised homeland. For a Christian pilgrim, it may be the place where their faith was born. For a Muslim believer, it may be tied to one of the most sacred journeys in their tradition. Now imagine all of those beliefs layered onto the same streets, the same stones, the same sky. Suddenly, this small land doesn't feel so small anymore. It becomes something much bigger, something people are willing to fight for. Even today, you can see how deeply this matters in everyday life. In some places, a short drive can take you from one world into another. Different languages, different flags, different realities. A road can separate not just neighborhoods, but entire identities. And sometimes, even something as simple as where you live can define how you see the world. This is where many outsiders misunderstand the situation. This is where many outsiders misunderstand the situation. They think it's just a political conflict, a disagreement over borders. But for the people who live here, it's far more personal than that. It's about history, family, faith, and the feeling of belonging. And when something touches all of those at once, it becomes incredibly difficult to resolve. The most powerful conflicts in the world are not always about land or resources. They are about meaning, about what people believe is worth protecting, no matter the cost. And once we understand that, we begin to see this land differently. Not just as a place on a map, but as the center of something much deeper. Because to truly understand this story, we need to go back to where it all began. To a time when this land was not yet divided, but already destined to shape the course of history. This land has a name you've heard before: Israel and Palestine. Two names for one land. A land that means different things, depending on who you ask. To understand why this land matters so much today, we have to travel back thousands of years. Long before modern borders, before politics, before headlines, this was the land of ancient kingdoms. Among them was the Kingdom of Israel, where a people began to form their identity around something powerful, their belief in one God. This belief wasn't just religious. It shaped their laws, their traditions, and the way they saw the world. At the center of this identity stood a city, Jerusalem. And within that city, a structure that would change history forever. The first temple. Built during the reign of King Solomon, it was believed to be the dwelling place of God on earth. For the people of that time, this wasn't just a building. It was the heart of their faith, the center of their world. People would travel long distances just to stand near it, to pray, to hope, to feel closer to something. But history, as we know, is rarely gentle. Around 586 BC, the Babylonian Empire invaded and destroyed the temple. The city was burned, the people were exiled, and what once felt permanent was suddenly gone. For many, this could have been the end of the story. But instead, it became the beginning of something even stronger. Because even without a temple, the belief did not disappear. It adapted, it survived, and it spread. This is something we often underestimate. We think faith depends on places, buildings, physical things. But history shows us something different. Faith can outlive empires. It can survive destruction, exile, and time itself. And in many ways, that's exactly what happened here. The memory of that temple, that city, that promise, stayed alive in the hearts of generations. Passed down through stories, prayers, and traditions. This is why this land is not just about geography. It is about memory. And when memory is tied to belief, it becomes incredibly powerful. But this is only one part of the story. Because this same land would soon become sacred to others as well. Different people, different beliefs, all drawn to the same place. And that is where things begin to change. Because when multiple truths exist in the same space, the story becomes more complex than anyone expects. So next, we step into the heart of it all. A city unlike any other in the world. A city where three religions meet, and where history is still being written every single day. Jerusalem is not just an ancient city, it is something far more rare. It is a place where three of the world's greatest religions all look to the same ground and say, "This is sacred." That alone is extraordinary. But it also explains why this city has never truly been at peace for long. For the Jewish people, Jerusalem is where their deepest roots are anchored. It is the site of the ancient temple, the place where heaven and earth were believed to meet. Today, all that remains is a wall, known as the Western Wall. And yet, that wall carries centuries of prayer, grief, and hope. You can still see people standing there, quietly placing their hands on the stone, whispering prayers as if speaking directly to God. Just a short walk away, the story continues for Christians. Because for them, Jerusalem is where the final chapter of Jesus' life unfolded. The streets here are believed to be the very path he walked, carrying the cross. And inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, many believe lies the place where he was crucified and later resurrected. Pilgrims from around the world come here, not just to see, but to feel something deeper. Then, rising above the city skyline, there is a golden dome that catches the light from almost every angle. For Muslims, this is one of the most sacred places in Islam. It is believed to mark the spot where the Prophet Muhammad began his journey to the heavens. And like the others, it is not just history, it is living faith. What makes Jerusalem so unique is not just that these stories exist. It's that they all exist in the same place, sometimes just meters apart. Imagine 3 different families living in the same house, each believing the home belongs to them. That's the reality here in many ways. And while that can create moments of beauty, it can also create deep tension. This is something many people misunderstand. They ask, why can't everyone just share? But sharing becomes complicated when what's being shared is sacred. Because sacred things are not just important, they are non-negotiable. And that is where conflict begins to take root. Not out of hatred, but out of deep devotion. Maybe that's the hardest truth to accept. That people can be driven by something beautiful and still end up in conflict. Jerusalem teaches us that belief can unite people across continents. But it can also divide those who stand just steps away from each other. And yet, despite everything, life continues here every single day. Markets open, prayers are spoken, children grow up hearing stories older than time itself. This is not just history frozen in the past. This is a living, breathing city. And to truly understand it, you have to walk through it. Not just through its landmarks, but through the lives of the people who call it home. Because beyond the history, beyond the faith, there is a reality that most visitors never fully see. And that's where our journey goes next. Into the streets of Jerusalem today, where belief and reality meet face to face. If Jerusalem is the heart of history, then walking through it today feels like stepping into a living story. Not a story frozen in time, but one that is still unfolding every single day. The old city is small enough to walk across in just a few hours. But what you experience in those few hours can feel like crossing entire worlds. The city is divided into 4 quarters, each with its own identity, its own rhythm, its own story. In the Jewish quarter, you might see families walking together, children playing near ancient stones that have stood for centuries. Just steps away, in the Christian quarter, the sound of church bells echoes softly through narrow streets. And then, as you turn a corner, the atmosphere shifts again. In the Muslim quarter, the streets are alive with markets, voices, and the call to prayer rising into the air. Finally, in the Armenian quarter, everything slows down, quieter, more reflective, almost hidden from the rest. At first glance, it feels like a beautiful coexistence. Different cultures, different beliefs, all sharing the same space. But as you stay longer, you begin to notice something else. There are invisible lines here. Lines you can't always see, but you can feel. In certain areas, security presence becomes more visible. Cameras, checkpoints, armed patrols, subtle reminders that this city carries tension beneath its surface. For a visitor, it might feel unusual, even unsettling at times. But for the people who live here, it is simply part of daily life. Imagine growing up in a place where history is not something you learn, but something you live with. Where your neighborhood, your school, even your daily route is shaped by forces far beyond your control. This is the reality behind the beauty. A city that is both deeply spiritual and quietly divided. And this is where many people from the outside struggle to understand. Because from a distance, it seems simple. Why not just share the city? But on the ground, it's never that simple. Because this is not just about space. It's about identity. It's about who belongs and who decides that. And those questions don't have easy answers. Maybe the lesson here is this: a place can hold incredible beauty and deep tension at the same time. And understanding it requires more than just seeing. It requires listening. Listening to the stories, the fears, the hopes of the people who live here. Because beyond the landmarks and the history, there are real lives unfolding every day. And if we want to truly understand this place, we have to see it through their eyes. That's where the story becomes more human and far more complicated. So next, we move beyond the streets and into the lives of the people themselves. Because in the end, this story is not just about a place. It's about the people who call it home. Up to this point, we've seen the history, the faith, and the places that define this land. But to truly understand the conflict, we have to look at something more personal: the people. Because behind every headline, there are lives being lived every single day. Lives shaped not just by history, but by the reality they wake up to each morning. Imagine being born into a place where the question of home is never simple. For many Israelis, this land represents safety. A place where their people can finally live without fear after centuries of persecution. For them, security is not just a policy, it's a necessity. It's why you see soldiers at checkpoints, why systems are in place to prevent attacks. Now imagine another perspective. For many Palestinians, this same land represents something else entirely. Not safety, but restriction. Movement can be limited. Opportunities can feel out of reach. And the idea of home can feel uncertain. In some areas, a simple journey to work or school might involve passing through checkpoints. Waiting, being checked, sometimes delayed, sometimes turned away. For an outsider, this might seem like a temporary inconvenience. But for those who live it every day, it becomes part of life. This is where the conflict becomes difficult to define in simple terms. Because both sides are not just telling stories, they are living them. A young Israeli might grow up believing they are protecting their future. A young Palestinian might grow up believing their freedom is being taken away. And both of those feelings are real. That's what makes this situation so complex. It's not just a disagreement over facts. It's a clash of lived experiences. And when experiences shape identity, compromise becomes harder. Many people from the outside try to choose a side. But the reality on the ground rarely fits into simple categories. Because human lives are rarely simple. Maybe the most important thing we can do is not rush to judge, but to listen. To understand that behind every position, there is a story, a family, a memory, a hope for something better. Because in the end, both sides are trying to hold on to something they believe is theirs. And that makes letting go incredibly difficult. But even in the middle of all this, life doesn't stop. People still build, create, love, and dream. And sometimes they find ways to connect. In shared workplaces, in quiet conversations, in small moments that rarely make the news. These moments may seem small, but they remind us of something important. That even in conflict, humanity remains. And perhaps that is where hope begins. Because if people can still see each other, not as enemies, but as human beings, then the story doesn't have to end the way it always has. And yet, the reality remains difficult. Nowhere is that contrast more visible than in a small city just a short distance away, a place known around the world for peace and faith, but living with a very different reality today. And that's where we go next. Just a short distance from Jerusalem, the story takes a quiet, unexpected turn. The road leads to Bethlehem, a place many people around the world already feel they know. Not because they've been there, but because they've heard its story since childhood. This is the place believed to be the birthplace of Jesus Christ, a symbol of peace, humility, and hope. At the heart of the city stands the Church of the Nativity, one of the oldest continuously operating churches in the world. Beneath its ancient stone walls, a small, simple space marks the spot where tradition says a child was born. A moment that would go on to shape the lives of billions. Every year, especially around Christmas, thousands of pilgrims gather here. They come with songs, prayers, and quiet reflection. For a moment, it feels exactly like what you'd expect. Peaceful, sacred, timeless. But then, you step outside, and the reality shifts. Not far from the church, a massive concrete wall stretches across the landscape. Tall, grey, and impossible to ignore. This is part of the separation barrier. A structure that has come to define daily life for many people here. For some, it represents protection. For others, it feels like a wall that divides lives. And here in Bethlehem, you can feel that contrast more than almost anywhere else. A city known around the world for a message of peace. Living alongside a reality of restriction and uncertainty. Walk along the wall and you'll notice something unexpected. It is covered in art. Murals, messages, and images that speak without words. Some of them were created by the artist Banksy. His work transforms concrete into conversation. One piece shows a child reaching beyond the wall, as if trying to touch a different world. Another replaces weapons with flowers, quietly asking a question no one can easily answer. These images don't solve the conflict, but they reveal something deeper. That even in difficult places, people still search for meaning, still express themselves, still hope. Maybe that's what makes Bethlehem so powerful. It holds two realities at once. A story of faith that speaks of peace, and a present that reminds us how fragile peace can be. And perhaps the lesson here is this: belief can inspire the world, but reality is shaped by how people live with that belief every day. And when those two don't align, the tension becomes impossible to ignore. Still, Bethlehem is not a place without hope. In quiet corners, in small communities, in everyday acts of kindness, life continues. And that matters more than we often realize. Because even in a divided place, people still find ways to hold on to humanity. And sometimes, that's where change begins. But to fully understand this land, we also need to step away from the cities into a place where silence speaks louder than words. A place shaped not by crowds, but by time, nature, and solitude. And that's where our journey takes us next. Even after thousands of years, this land still holds secrets no one can fully explain. Not just stories passed down through faith, but mysteries that continue to challenge historians, archaeologists, and believers alike. One of the most enduring of these is the story of the Ark of the Covenant. According to ancient texts, it was a sacred chest said to hold the 10 Commandments. More than that, it was believed to be a physical connection between God and humanity. It was once kept in the most sacred space of the temple in Jerusalem, a place so holy that only one person could enter, and only once a year. But then, something happened. When the temple was destroyed, the ark disappeared. No clear record, no confirmed location, just silence and speculation. Some believe it was hidden to protect it. Others think it was taken or lost forever. And to this day, no one truly knows. This isn't just a religious mystery. It's a reminder of how much of history remains incomplete. Not far from there, another discovery changed how we understand the past. In 1947, near the Dead Sea, ancient scrolls were found hidden in caves. These became known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Over 900 manuscripts, some over 2,000 years old. They contained familiar texts, and others no one had ever seen before. Laws, prayers, visions of the future, offering a rare glimpse into the world of ancient belief. Discoveries like this remind us that the past is never fully gone. It waits, hidden beneath the surface, until someone uncovers it again. And maybe that's what makes this land so unique. It doesn't just tell stories, it keeps them alive, unfinished, still waiting for answers. Perhaps the lesson here is simple, yet powerful. Not everything needs to be fully understood to still hold meaning. Some mysteries exist not to be solved, but to remind us how small we are in the flow of time. And here, in this land, that feeling is everywhere. But beyond the mysteries of the past, there is another force shaping this land. Not history, not belief, but nature itself. And that's where our journey goes next. Beyond the cities, beyond the history, beyond even the mysteries, this land reveals another side of itself. A quieter one, a harsher one. Welcome to the desert. Here, in places like the Judean desert, the landscape feels almost untouched by time. endless stretches of rock and sand, shaped by wind, heat, and silence. At first glance, it may seem empty, lifeless, unforgiving. But if you look closer, you begin to notice something remarkable. Life exists here, not in abundance, but in resilience. On the steep cliffs, the Nubian ibex moves effortlessly across the rocks, its hooves gripping surfaces that seem impossible to stand on. In the silence of the night, the barn owl glides through the air without a sound, hunting with precision in complete darkness. And high above, the peregrine falcon dives through the sky at incredible speeds. A reminder that even here, nature pushes its limits. These creatures are not just surviving. They are adapting, evolving, thriving in conditions that seem impossible. And maybe that reflects something deeper about this land. Because just like the desert, the people here have learned to endure through conflict, through change, through uncertainty. And still, life continues. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Maybe that's the final lesson this land has to offer. Survival is not always about strength. Sometimes it's about resilience, the ability to keep going, even when the environment is against you. To adapt without losing who you are. To hold on, even when letting go might seem easier. And perhaps that is why this land still matters so much today. Not just because of its past, but because of the way it continues to live. A place of faith, a place of struggle, a place of survival, and in many ways, a reflection of us all. So as we come to the end of this journey, maybe the question is no longer just about this land, but about what we choose to learn from it. Because in the end, history tells us where we've been, but it is understanding that shapes where we go next. And that choice has always been ours.